We've all been there, right? That overwhelming urge for something sweet, that moment when willpower just seems to vanish.
Oh, absolutely. For so many of us, it's not just an occasional thing either. It feels like a constant battle.
Yeah, and it's so much more than just a simple matter of self-control, like people often say.
Right, exactly.
So today we're going to dive deep, really deep into the science behind those sugar
You
cravings.
are. We'll be exploring the truth about sugar cravings, why you can't stop, and how to fix it.
And our mission today, well, it's to move beyond that self-blame game and really get to the bottom of why these cravings happen.
Yeah, like what's really going on biologically and environmentally?
Exactly. And most importantly, we're going to look at what the evidence says about what we can actually do about it, how to manage those cravings effectively.
Exactly.
So we're going to cover a lot of ground, from our ancient evolutionary connection to all things sweet,
Oh, yeah, way back.
to the powerful way our brains light up with that reward system and the crucial role of blood sugar. This goes way beyond just psychology.
It really does. It's fascinating how all these different pieces fit together. Our ancient biology, our brain wiring, and our everyday physiology, they all play a part in creating that intense desire for sugar.
Okay, so let's start with that evolutionary perspective. Why are we even programmed to crave sugar in the first place?
Well, if you think about it, for most of human history, finding food was a real challenge.
Oh, yeah.
And ripe fruit packed with sugar, that was a rare find.
Mm-hmm.
It was an incredibly efficient source of energy when our ancestors could get it.
So it was like hitting the jackpot.
Exactly. It was a major survival advantage. Easy calories, vital nutrients. So craving sugar, it's not some moral failing. It's literally wired into us.
It's like finding that superfuel in a scarce environment.
Precisely. And our brains evolved to make sure we'd keep seeking it out. So enter the natural reward system.
Mm-hmm.
When our ancestors ate sugar, it triggered the release of feel-good chemicals, making them want to find more.
And that brings us to dopamine, right?
Oh yeah, dopamine. It plays a big role here.
The source even compares this reward pathway to what happens with addictive substances. That sounds, well, intense.
It is. When you taste something sweet, your brain releases this surge of dopamine. This neurotransmitter is linked to pleasure, motivation, and reinforcement.
So you're saying that eating sugar isn't just enjoyable, it actually makes you want to repeat the behavior.
Exactly. It becomes deeply ingrained in our brains. And what's fascinating is just how strong this dopamine release can be.
So that helps explain those really intense, sometimes almost irresistible cravings.
It does. It's a powerful reward, not just a preference.
Wow. Okay. So we're dealing with this deep-seated biological drive, supercharged by this pleasure response in the brain, and then enter our modern diet.
Oh, yeah.
With all its processed foods and sugary drinks, it's like we're constantly bombarded with opportunities to trigger these ancient reward systems.
Exactly. It's like pouring gasoline on a fire.
And this is where the blood sugar roller coaster comes in.
Absolutely. This is a huge part of the equation.
Can you walk us through that process? What happens in our bodies when we eat something sugary?
So you eat something loaded with refined carbs or sugar. It gets digested really quickly and floods your bloodstream as glucose.
Okay.
That causes a rapid spike in your blood sugar level.
That sugar rush.
Exactly. And your pancreas responds by releasing insulin, which helps move that glucose into your cells for energy or storage.
Makes sense.
But sometimes, and this is the problem, the insulin response can overshoot, causing your blood sugar to plummet too low. This is called hypoglycemia.
Okay.
And that sudden drop. Well, it triggers those intense cravings all over again. Your body basically panics. It needs a quick fix of energy, and guess what it wants?
Sugar.
You got it.
Yeah.
And that starts the whole cycle all over again.
It's like we're chasing that initial sugar high, crashing, then desperately craving more to climb back up. Exhausting.
Very much so. And, the source calls this the dependency pattern, which I think is a really accurate way to describe it.
And that explains why we often feel that mid-afternoon slump a couple of hours after a carb-heavy lunch.
Right. The source also lists some signs your cravings signal blood sugar imbalance. Things like energy crashes, especially mid-afternoon, irritability when hungry, difficulty concentrating when you have to wait for a meal.
Oh yeah, the mid-afternoon slump is definitely a daily ritual for me. And the irritability when I'm hungry. My family can vouch for that one.
Yeah, we've all been there. Other signs can be waking up during the night, feeling constantly hungry even after eating, needing something sweet right after a meal, and even anxiety, nervousness, or shakiness between meals.
Wow, I never realized all those things could be related to blood sugar. So now that we know why these cravings happen, how do we break free?
Well, the source talks about natural strategies to regain control, starting with dietary approaches.
Let's talk about food then. What are some things we can do?
One of the most effective first steps is to focus on creating more balanced meals.
Okay, what does that mean?
Basically, make sure you're including protein, healthy fats, and fiber alongside your carbohydrates.
So it's not just about what we eat, but about the overall composition of our meals.
Exactly. These nutrients help slow down the digestion and absorption of glucose, which leads to a more gradual and stable rise in blood sugar.
So instead of that quick burst and then crash, it's more sustained energy.
That's the goal.
The source also mentions chromium-rich foods. How do those fit in?
Some micronutrients can significantly impact our blood sugar regulation, and chromium is one of them.
And you can find that in broccoli, green beans, whole grains.
Exactly. Chromium enhances the action of insulin, helping your body use glucose more efficiently.
Interesting. What about cinnamon? I know people add it to oatmeal, coffee, things like that.
There's actually some good research on cinnamon. It contains compounds that seem to mimic the effects of insulin, which could potentially improve how your cells take up glucose.
So it's not just a tasty spice, it might actually help.
Right. And then there's magnesium, leafy greens, nuts, seeds. It's involved in tons of processes in the body, including glucose metabolism.
Got it. So it's about making sure we're getting enough of these key nutrients.
Exactly. It's about being mindful and strategic, not about cutting out entire food groups.
Now, beyond diet, the source talks about lifestyle modifications. How do exercise and sleep affect this whole thing?
Oh, hugely important. Exercise, for example, can significantly improve insulin sensitivity.
What does that mean exactly?
Well, when your body is more sensitive to insulin, it's better at using glucose.
And that can help prevent those big blood sugar swings, right?
Exactly, which then helps to reduce cravings.
Makes sense. And what about sleep? I know when I'm tired, all I want is junk food.
You're not alone there. Sleep plays a vital role in regulating the hormones that control our appetite and satiety.
So when you're sleep deprived, you're more likely to crave things, especially sugary things.
Exactly. The hormones that increase hunger and cravings go up, and the ones that signal fullness go down. So good sleep is really key.
What about stress? I definitely crave sweets when I'm stressed out.
Absolutely. Stress triggers the release of cortisol, which can raise both your blood sugar and insulin levels.
So it feeds into that same cycle of imbalance and cravings.
It does. So managing stress is another really important piece of the puzzle.
Okay, so diet and lifestyle are the foundation for managing these cravings. But the source also mentions supplement support, specifically GlucoTrust. Can you talk about that?
The source presents supplements as an additional form of support, especially for those who are struggling even with diet and lifestyle changes.
So it's not a replacement for healthy habits, but something that could help alongside them.
Right. Supplements generally work best in conjunction with those healthy habits.
Okay. The source lists several ingredients in GlucoTrust and their potential functions. Can we go through some of those?
Absolutely. One key ingredient is berberine. It has been studied clinically, and some research suggests it might improve insulin sensitivity and support healthy glucose metabolism. Then there's cinnamon extract, which we already talked about, and chromium, which is an essential mineral that seems to play a key role in enhancing insulin function.
We talked about those in terms of diet as well.
Exactly. And then there's bitter melon. It contains compounds that might actually act in ways similar to insulin.
Okay.
Alpha-lipoic acid is a powerful antioxidant, and some studies suggest it may also improve insulin sensitivity. And finally, there's Gymnema sylvester, a traditional herb that may help reduce sugar absorption and even diminish cravings.
So many different ingredients working together.
Right. And the source suggests that when combined with a healthy diet and lifestyle, they could offer several potential benefits: moderating glucose spikes, supporting insulin sensitivity, reducing craving intensity and frequency.
It sounds promising.
The source also points to the possibility of more stable energy levels and overall metabolic health. But it's important to remember that these potential benefits are most likely to be seen when supplements are used alongside those healthy habits.
Okay, so we've explored the science behind cravings and some strategies to manage them. What does the source say about actually building a sustainable path forward, breaking free from this cycle long term?
Well, it's a multi-pronged approach. It involves gradually reducing your intake of added sugars.
So don't go cold turkey.
That can be too much for most people. Gradual reduction is key. And it also involves cultivating mindfulness, becoming aware of the emotional triggers that lead you to crave sugary foods.
Yeah, like when you're stressed, bored, or sad, it's easy to reach for a treat.
Exactly. Recognizing those patterns is so important. And then there's incorporating healthy substitutes like whole fruits, dark chocolate, or adding cinnamon to your food,
Makes sense.
and paying attention to meal timing. Eating regular balanced meals can really help prevent those blood sugar dips that trigger cravings. And don't underestimate hydration. Sometimes thirst is mistaken for a sugar craving.
That's true. And finally, remember that support tools, including supplements, can be part of that overall strategy. So the key takeaway for everyone listening is that sugar cravings aren't just a lack of willpower.
Right. There's so much more to it than that.
It's this complex interplay of evolution, brain chemistry, and blood sugar regulation.
And by understanding those mechanisms, we can start implementing strategies that actually work.
We've talked about balanced meals, specific nutrients, sleep, stress management, and even supplements as potential support tools.
It's about taking a holistic approach.
So here's a final thought for you to ponder. Think about how sugar might be influencing your energy levels and mood, even beyond those obvious cravings. Which of those signs of blood sugar imbalance did you relate to most? That could be a starting point for you. Maybe try making one small change in your diet or lifestyle and see how it goes.
It's a journey, and figuring out what works best for you is what matters most.
That's a great note to end on. Thanks for joining us for this deep dive into the truth about sugar cravings.
It's been a pleasure.
And to all of you listening, stay tuned for more deep dives into the fascinating world of health and wellness.